The night was silent. It's the kind of silence that pressed heavy on the walls of a small house at the edge of the colony. The human, Daniel, was half asleep when he heard a faint sound. A floorboard creaking. He froze, his heart pounding. His first thought was simple. Someone had broken in. He pushed his blanket aside, moving slowly, careful not to make a sound. His house was small. Only 3 rooms, so every noise carried. He reached for the light stick he kept near the bed. The faint glow spilling across the dark walls, with slow, steady steps. He walked toward the bathroom. The sound had come from their soft, dripping noises mixed with something like quiet breathing. His mind raced. Thieves were rare in this part of the colony, but not impossible. And yet, there was something about the sound. It was not bold, not careless. It was desperate when he pushed the door open. His breath caught, standing inside, half hidden by the shadows, was a small figure. It was not a human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim, light pale silver. With patches of deep bruises, her hair clung wet against her head, long strands dripping onto the floor tiles. Her large, glowing eyes widened in fear when she saw him. She was no taller than his chest, thin, fragile, and trembling. And in that trembling voice, she whispered only one thing. "Please. Just a shower, please. Mercy." Daniel froze. His mind screamed danger. Every instinct told him to slam the door, to call the patrol. Aliens creeping into private homes was no small matter, but there was something in her voice. It was not the voice of a thief or a predator. It was the voice of someone cornered, hunted. She backed away when he took a step closer, pressing herself against the cold tiles. Her hands, small and claw-tipped, shook as she tried to cover herself. Her clothes were torn, little more than rags clinging to her. He noticed her legs scratched, swollen, bleeding in places. She had run far. Maybe even through the rough colony outskirts. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, keeping his voice low. The light flickered in his hand as he held it up. Her throat moved as she swallowed hard. She seemed afraid even to speak her own name. Her lips trembled before words slipped out. "Lyra," she said, almost too soft to hear. "I won't steal. I won't harm. Just let me wash, please." Daniel stared, torn between suspicion and pity. She was small. Too small to be a threat, yet his mind whispered warnings. Aliens came with rules. Strict rules. If anyone discovered an unregistered alien in his home, he could be fined, arrested, or worse. He opened his mouth to send her away, but stopped when she flinched at his movement. It was the flinch of someone beaten too many times, the kind of reflex a body learns only after endless cruelty. Something inside him shifted. This was not a criminal. This was a runaway, a soul on the edge of breaking. "You came here for water?" Daniel asked, slowly lowering the light. She nodded quickly, her wet hair dripping faster now. Her hands trembled as she pointed weakly at the shower controls. "Just water. Just mercy. Then I leave. For a moment." Silence filled the room again. Daniel could hear his own heart. He could hear the faint hum of the colony generators outside. But most of all, he could hear her breathing, ragged and uneven, like she had been running for her life. Finally, he stepped back, his hand moved toward the shower control. He twisted the knob, and water flowed. Steam rising into the small space, the alien girl's eyes widened. Glowing brighter at the sight of it, a sound broke from her lips. Half sob, half laugh, pure relief. She stepped forward slowly, as though afraid he would change his mind. Her thin frame shook as she raised her face to the falling water. The bruises and dirt that covered her skin began to fade away under the stream. Yet, as the water revealed more of her form, Daniel saw things that made his chest tighten. There were scars, dozens of them, crossing her arms, her shoulders, her back, some old, some fresh. They were not marks of accident. They were marks of chains, whips, and cruelty. Daniel looked away, guilt burning in his chest. He did not know her story. But the scars spoke loudly enough. Minutes passed. She stood. In the water, eyes closed, her lips moving in silent words. Maybe prayers, maybe promises to herself. Daniel could not tell. He leaned against the doorframe, torn between sending her away and letting her stay. Finally, she turned to him. Water dripping from her hair, her eyes glowing softly in the steam, locked on his. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice cracked, but her words carried something. Heavy something like faith. Daniel did not answer. He could not. His throat was tight. His mind was louder than ever, reminding him of the risk. But as he looked at her fragile frame, her scars, her trembling gratitude, he knew one thing. This was no simple intruder. This was the start of something far more dangerous. The night that had begun with silence now pulsed with a new, unseen danger. Somewhere outside. In the darkness beyond his walls, someone must be searching for her. Someone who had left those scars, someone who would not stop until they found her. And Daniel, against all logic, had just given her shelter. Daniel could not sleep. Not after what he had seen. The alien girl was still in his bathroom, water dripping from her hair. Her body trembling like a leaf in the wind. He wanted to believe it was over, that she would finish and leave quietly, but the truth was clear. She was broken, frightened, and she had nowhere to go. He leaned against the wall, his arms folded tight. His mind argued with itself. He should call the patrol. He should stay away. But every time he looked at her scars, every time her glowing eyes lifted toward him, his resolve weakened. Lyra, that was the name she had whispered. She had said she would leave after the shower, yet she still stood there. Clutching the ragged cloth that hung around her shoulders, her voice came again, soft but steady. "Please, don't send me back. Please don't call them." Daniel frowned. Them. Who? Her gaze dropped to the floor, drops of water sliding down her face like tears. Her lips trembled before she answered. "The hunters. The ones who own me." The word own stabbed at Daniel's chest. His stomach turned. He wanted to ask more. But the way she shook her head told him she was not ready. Not yet. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally, trying to sound firm, but his voice lacked strength. "If someone finds you, I'll be in trouble." "Big trouble, I know," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "I'll go soon. Just let me rest a little, please. Just tonight." She wrapped her arms around herself, her small frame sinking against the bathroom wall. Daniel could see her struggle to even stay upright. Her legs trembled with exhaustion. Her face was pale under the bruises. She had been running for a long time, maybe days. Daniel sighed. He was not heartless. He never had been. His problem was always the opposite. He cared too much. Even when he knew better, he rubbed a hand over his face, muttering under his breath, "What am I doing?" She lifted her head, eyes glimmering. "Mercy," she said again. Her single word heavy like a stone. "I don't want gold. I don't want food. I don't want clothes. Just mercy. Just one human who will not hurt me." The words hit him harder than he expected. He felt his throat tighten. What kind of life had she lived that she begged not for riches or power, but only for mercy? He turned away, pacing the small hallway, his shadow stretched across the dim walls. His house felt smaller now, like it was holding its breath with him. "What will they do if they find you here?" he asked at last. His tone was low, careful, as though the walls themselves might hear. Her silence lasted too long. Then she whispered, "They will kill me, and they will punish you for helping me." The bluntness of her words sent a chill through him. His hands curled into fists. "Why?" "Because I am theirs," she said bitterly, "and you are not allowed to care for what belongs to them." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. Anger at faceless hunters who would dare to own someone like her. Anger at the idea that kindness could be punished. He wanted to shout, but he kept his voice low. Steady, you're not property. Her eyes widened at his words, as if no one had ever said such a thing to her before. Her lips trembled, and for a moment she looked like she might cry. But instead, she lowered her head, whispering, "That's what you say, but not what they believe." Silence fell again, broken only by the dripping water. Daniel's thoughts twisted in circles. Should he risk everything for a stranger? Should he let her stay, knowing hunters might come? The logical answer was clear. He should send her away. But when he looked at her again, he saw a truth stronger than logic. She was already broken. Already pushed to the edge. If he sent her out now, she would not survive the night. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice rough. "You can stay." For tonight, her head snapped up, her glowing eyes wide. "Stay." She repeated, as though the word was too unreal to trust. He nodded reluctantly. "Just for tonight. After that, we'll figure something out." Her chest rose and fell quickly. Her hands pressed together as if she wanted to thank him, but could not find the right words. Instead, she whispered again, "Mercy." "Thank you, human." Daniel turned away before she could see his face. His decision had been made. But his stomach churned with unease. He had just invited trouble into his home, and yet, deep inside, he knew it was the only choice he could live with. She moved closer to the small heater he had set by the wall. Wrapping herself in a blanket, he reluctantly offered. Her eyes closed slowly, her body sagging with exhaustion. Within minutes, she was asleep, the tension in her face easing for the first time. Daniel stood nearby, watching her chest rise and fall. He should have felt angry at himself, but instead, he felt something he could not name, something like protectiveness. The night dragged on, but peace did not come. Daniel sat by the window, staring out at the colony streets, wondering how long it would take before someone realized she was missing. Wondering if those hunters were already searching. The silence was heavy, but now it carried danger. Every shadow outside seemed darker, every noise sharper. Daniel's eyes stayed on the night, while behind him, the small alien girl slept for the first time without fear. And he knew, deep in his gut, this was only the beginning. The morning light crept slowly through the blinds, painting faint golden lines across Daniel's small living room. He had barely slept. His body sat heavy in the chair by the window, but his eyes had never closed for long. He had watched the night pass in silence, always expecting footsteps, always waiting for the sound of fists against his door. But the night had stayed quiet. Outside, the colony streets had woken with normal life, vendors setting up stalls, workers moving to their stations, the hum of machinery filling the air. Inside, however, everything had changed. In his house, a secret now breathed, a secret that could cost him everything. Daniel's gaze turned to the corner where she lay. The alien girl, Lyra, was curled under the blanket he had given her. Her breathing was soft, her face relaxed in sleep. She looked younger than she had the night before, younger and far more fragile. When she stirred, her eyes flickered open, glowing faintly in the morning light. She sat up slowly, clutching the blanket close. Her gaze met his, and for a moment silence hung heavy between them. Then she whispered, "You didn't call them?" Daniel shook his head. "I didn't." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something more, but instead, she lowered her eyes. Her hands tugged the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Yet, as she shifted, the cloth slipped, and Daniel caught a glimpse of her arm. He froze. His breath caught at what he saw. Long scars ran down her skin, crossing over one another like cruel maps. Some had healed, leaving raised lines. Others were fresh, raw, and angry. She noticed his eyes, and in an instant she yanked the blanket up to cover herself. Her face turned away. shame filling every line of her expression. "Don't look," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't look at me." Daniel leaned forward, his chest heavy. "Lyra." She shook her head hard. "I don't want you to see. You'll think I'm dirty, broken." His hands curled into fists on his knees. Anger rising inside him knotted her. But at whoever had left those marks, his voice came out low, but firm. "I don't think that." Her shoulders trembled, but she didn't turn back. She pressed the blanket tighter against herself, as if it were armor. Finally, her words spilled out, soft and painful. "They made sure I would never forget. Every day, every time I failed, they left another mark. And when I begged for mercy, they laughed. They said small ones like me deserve pain." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to ask who they were, but he could see the struggle in her face, the way her voice shook. She was not ready to tell everything, but even these few words were enough to paint a picture. "You're not broken," Daniel said quietly. His voice held no hesitation this time. "Those scars. They're not shame. They're proof you survived." Her head jerked slightly, her eyes finally turning back to him. The glow in them flickered, almost uncertain, as if no one had ever told her that before. He gave a small nod. "Steady. Someone tried to destroy you, but you're still here. That makes you stronger than them." Her lips trembled, and her eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped them with the edge of the blanket. Shaking her head, "You don't understand. Humans don't understand. In my world, scars mean weakness. They mark you as worthless, they say." "I'm nothing." Daniel's jaw clenched. He hated every word she spoke. Hated that she had been taught to believe such lies. "Then your world is wrong," he said firmly. "Because here, with me, you're not nothing." The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't heavy with fear. It was filled with something different, something fragile, but real. Lyra shifted slowly, lowering the blanket just enough to expose part of her arm again. Her glowing eyes searched his face, almost testing him, almost waiting for disgust. But Daniel didn't flinch. He held her gaze, steady and calm, when she saw no rejection. Her breath shook out of her chest. She pulled the blanket tighter once more, but this time her voice carried something new. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why are you kind to me? You don't know me. You risk yourself for me. Why?" Daniel leaned back, staring at the ceiling for a moment before answering. "Because someone had to. Because no one deserves to beg for mercy just to exist." Her lips parted, and for a long time she said nothing. Then, with a quiet voice that trembled like a candle flame, she whispered, "No one has ever said that to me. No one has ever looked at me and not seen a slave." The words struck Daniel deep. His throat tightened, but he forced himself to stay calm. He wanted to promise her safety. But he knew the truth he couldn't yet. The hunters she feared were still out there, and they would not stop. Still. In that moment, as he looked at her fragile form, he knew something important. He could not let her go back. Not to them. Outside, the colony noises grew louder. Footsteps and voices passing near his door. Daniel stiffened, his ears straining, but the sounds faded again. The danger was not here yet, but it would come. He turned back to Lyra, who was watching him with those glowing, uncertain eyes. And he realized that trust was forming between them, fragile like glass, but real. He took a deep breath, his voice steady. "Lyra, I don't know what comes next. But if you stay here, you're not alone anymore." Her eyes widened, and tears rolled silently down her cheeks. This time, she didn't wipe them away. She let them fall. Her lips whispering the same words she had said so many times before, but now with new meaning. Mercy? And in that fragile moment, Daniel knew her scars were not just reminders of pain. They were the beginning of a story neither of them had expected. A story that was only just starting, The sun was higher now, and light filled Daniel's small house, but inside the walls, the air was heavy. The alien girl, Lyra, sat near the small heater, her blanket wrapped tight around her thin body. Her glowing eyes flickered between fear and curiosity. Daniel sat across from her, his hands resting on the table. His thoughts had not stopped racing since the night before. He needed answers. He needed to know what kind of danger he had let into his home. Finally, he spoke, his voice firm but calm. Lyra, you have to tell me the truth. Who is hunting you? Why are you here? Her body stiffened. Her small hands clenched the blanket tighter. For a moment, he thought she would refuse. But then her shoulders slumped, and she whispered, "You won't believe me." Daniel leaned forward. "Try me." Her glowing eyes lifted, filled with sorrow. "I belong to them," she said quietly. "The hunters, the syndicate. They take small ones like me. Weak ones, they brand us, they use us, they trade us like tools. I was born under their chains." Daniel felt his chest tighten. His fists curled under the table. He kept his voice steady. "And you escaped." She gave a small nod, her lips trembling. "Yes, I ran. But when you run, they follow. They never let go of what they think they own. To them, I am not a person. I am property." The word property burned Daniel's ears. He wanted to deny it too, shout that it wasn't true, but the scars he had seen proved it was. His jaw clenched. "How long have you been running?" Her gaze dropped to the floor. 3 weeks, I hid in cargo ships. In alleys, in drains, I had no food, no rest, only fear. Every time I thought I was free, I saw them again, their shadows in the streets. Their voices calling my name. Her voice broke. "Last night I thought I was going to collapse in the dirt. Then I saw your house. I thought maybe I could wash away the stink of chains, just once, before they caught me again." Daniel sat frozen. Her words hit him like stones. She hadn't come to steal. She hadn't come to harm. She had come only for a shower, for a piece of mercy. "And if they find you here?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Her eyes lifted, glowing dim with dread. "They will punish you worse than me. They want to make examples of anyone who helps. They want everyone afraid to show kindness. That way, we have nowhere to run." Daniel's stomach churned. His mind warned him against sending her away. Distance yourself. Stay safe. But his heart refused. He looked at the girl before him, broken but alive, trembling yet unyielding, and he knew he could not throw her back into the hands of those monsters. "Lyra," he said carefully, "do they know you came here? Do they know my house?" Her silence was answer enough. Her face paled. "I think they saw me. I think they followed my trail." Daniel stood at once, his chair scraping the floor. He moved to the window, peering out at the street. Everything looked normal: vendors selling, children running, but now every shadow felt like a threat. Every face seemed suspicious. His heart thumped hard. Behind him, Lyra's voice trembled. "If you want me to go, I will. I don't want you to suffer because of me." He turned back quickly, his voice sharp. "No, you won't survive out there. You can't even stand without trembling if they're looking for you. Going out now is suicide." Her lips parted, her eyes wide. "Then why? Why would you risk yourself?" Daniel's voice was steady, but his chest burned with anger. "Because it's wrong. Because they can't keep doing this. Because someone has to care. And right now, that someone is me." Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She tried to wipe them away, but they kept falling. Her voice shook. "No human has ever said that to me before." Daniel took a deep breath, forcing calm into his voice. "Then maybe humans aren't what you were told. Maybe we're not as weak or as cruel as they think." The room grew silent again, but the silence carried weight, not emptiness. Lyra stared at him, as if searching for a reason to believe. Slowly, her blanket slipped a little, and she let him see more of her arms, more of the scars. It was an act of trust, fragile but real. Daniel looked without flinching. His eyes did not turn away, and that seemed to matter more than words. Finally, she whispered, "If they come, they won't stop. They will break your door, burn your house. They will tear you apart for this. Are you ready for that?" Daniel stood tall, his fists clenched at his sides. His voice came out like steel. "Let them come. I won't hand you." Over the words shocked even him, but once spoken, he knew they were true. Lyra's lips parted. Her breath caught for the first time since she entered his home. Her eyes held something other than fear. It was hope, faint and trembling. But alive outside, a shout echoed in the street. Daniel's head snapped toward the window, his chest tightened. Were they here already? The dangerous truth was clear. Now helping her was not just an act of kindness. It was a declaration of war, and Daniel had just chosen his side. The day moved too slowly. Every tick of the small wall clock echoed like a hammer in Daniel's ears. He tried to act normal. He made food, he paced his house, he checked the windows. But nothing felt normal anymore. Not with her here, not with danger so close. Lyra stayed quiet most of the time, sitting near the heater with her blanket wrapped around her. Sometimes her eyes would close as if she wanted to sleep. But she always startled awake. Her body refused to rest. Every sound outside made her flinch. Her fear spread into the walls, filling Daniel's house like smoke. By evening, the streets outside had grown quieter. Vendors closed their stalls. Children were called inside. The air carried a stillness that Daniel did not like. He felt it in his bones. Something was wrong. Then it came, a heavy thud against the door. Daniel froze. His breath caught. He glanced at Lyra. She had already gone pale. Her glowing eyes widened. With terror, she whispered one word. "Them." The knock came again, louder this time, shaking the wood. Then a voice followed, deep and sharp. "Open, human. We know she's inside." Daniel's chest tightened. His fists curled. He forced his voice steady as he called back, "There's no one here but me." A low laugh came from the other side. Cruel and mocking, do not lie. We tracked her. We smelled her fear. Give her to us, and maybe we let you live. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, shaking her head rapidly. Her lips moved silently, begging him not to. Daniel felt her fear like a blade against his skin. He swallowed hard, his mind racing. Another crash hit the door. The wood groaned under the force. Dust fell from the frame. They were strong enough to break in if they wanted. Daniel whispered quickly to Lyra, "Hide." Her eyes locked on his. "Where?" He glanced around desperately. His house was too small, but he moved fast. Pulling a rug aside and lifting the loose floorboard beneath it, he pointed. "There, quick." Her hands shook as she slid into the small space. Curling herself as tight as she could, Daniel dropped the board back in place, pulling the rug over it just as another crash shook the door. He straightened, his heart pounding. He grabbed a metal pipe from the corner of the room, the closest thing he had to a weapon. Then he walked toward the door. The voice outside growled, "Last chance, human, open, or we tear it down." Daniel's hand gripped the handle, but he didn't turn it. Instead, he shouted back, "You're not welcome here. Leave." The response was immediate. A roar of anger, then the door cracked, splinters flying as heavy fists pounded against it. Daniel braced himself, his pipe raised, his chest hammered with fear, but beneath it burned something stronger, defiance. The door burst inward. The hunters stepped through, tall, armored, their eyes glowing red. Their skin was dark and ridged. their jaws sharp with teeth. Each carried weapons, long rods crackling with energy. The leader stepped forward, scanning the room with a sneer. His gaze landed on Daniel. "You are brave." Human, brave, and stupid. Daniel forced his hands not to shake. "There's no one here, just me." The hunter sniffed the air, his grin widening. "Lie, I smell her. I smell her fear. Give her to us, or you die screaming." Daniel's heart pounded, but he didn't move aside. He tightened his grip on the pipe. "You'll find nothing here." The hunter's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then he gave a cruel smile. "Then we search." Daniel stepped forward fast, blocking his path. The hunter's grin vanished, replaced by a snarl. In an instant, the rod swung, slamming into Daniel's side. Pain exploded through him. He staggered but didn't fall, behind the floorboards, hidden in the dark. Lyra pressed her hands over her mouth. Her body trembled as tears rolled down her cheeks. Every sound, every crash above her, cut like knives. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run, but she stayed hidden, knowing Daniel had chosen to stand for her. Daniel gasped, pain searing his ribs. But he forced his body upright. His voice came. "Rough but strong, you won't touch her." The hunter laughed coldly. "Then you die first." The others spread through the house, kicking over chairs, smashing open cupboards, searching. Daniel's heart raced. He prayed they wouldn't find the floorboard. He prayed Lyra stayed quiet. The leader raised his weapon again. But this time, Daniel swung his pipe. The metal cracked against the hunter's shoulder. The creature snarled, stumbling back a step. Shock flashed across its face. This human dared to fight. For a second, everything froze. Then the hunter's grin returned, wider than before. "Good," he hissed. "We like it when prey fights." Daniel's chest heaved. His body screamed with pain, but he stood tall. His eyes didn't break from the monsters. He had made his choice. He would not betray her. Outside, voices echoed. More hunters gathering. The night grew darker, heavier. The danger had come. And it was only the beginning. Beneath the floor, Lyra pressed her forehead against the wood, silent tears falling. She whispered to herself the word Daniel had given her, not nothing. And she knew for the first time someone was fighting for her. Asterisk, the door hung half broken. The frame splintered from the force of the hunter's entry. Daniel's living room was a mess, chairs knocked over. Shelves smashed as the hunters stormed through. Their glowing red eyes scanned every corner, their weapons buzzing with cruel energy. Daniel stood in the center of the room, gripping his metal pipe with white knuckles. His ribs ached from the strike he had already taken. Every breath burned, but he refused to fall. His body screamed with fear. But something stronger held him in place. He could not, would not, let them take her. The leader snarled, his sharp teeth flashing. "You are stubborn, human. Too stubborn for your own good. Tell us where she is, and maybe we only break you a little." Daniel spat blood onto the floor and lifted the pipe again. His voice came out low but steady. "You'll have to break me all the way. Because she's not leaving this house with you." A silence followed his words. The hunters glanced at each other. Their grins widened, amused and angry at the same time. The leader laughed, a harsh sound that echoed against the walls. "So be it," he hissed. "We will tear your home apart. Brick by brick, bone by bone, behind the floorboards." Lyra's heart pounded so hard she thought it would give her away. She pressed her hands over her mouth, hot tears running down her cheeks. Daniel's voice rang in her ears. He had chosen her over his own safety. And she could do nothing but hide in the dark. The first hunter lunged, his rod swinging. Daniel dodged, the crackling weapons slicing the air inches from his head. He swung his pipe hard, the metal colliding with the hunter's arm. The alien growled, stumbling. Daniel's chest heaved with effort. But he didn't stop. He struck again, this time at the creature's knee. The crack of impact filled the room, but then another blow struck Daniel's back, sending pain through. His body like fire. He collapsed to one knee, his pipe clattering. The hunters circled him, their cruel laughter filling the air. The leader crouched, gripping Daniel's hair, forcing his face upward. His eyes glowed red. "You are nothing, human, nothing but flesh to break." Daniel's lips curled into a bloody smile. His voice rasped. "Funny. That's what you said?" "About her too." The leader's grin faded into a snarl. He raised his rod, ready to end it, but just as the strike came down, Daniel rolled aside, grabbing his pipe again. With a roar of defiance, he swung upward. The pipe cracked against the hunter's jaw. The leader staggered, his red glow dimming for a moment. Daniel pushed to his feet, his body weak but his spirit unbroken. He raised the pipe again, standing tall despite the blood running down his face. "You'll have to kill me, because I will never hand her over." The other hunters growled, stepping closer. But there was something different in their eyes. Now, not just cruelty, but a flicker of respect. Humans were supposed to beg, supposed to break, yet this one stood, battered but defiant. Lyra's tears blurred her vision beneath the floorboards. Her body shook with fear and guilt. She whispered to herself, "Why? Why does he fight for me?" But she knew the answer, because he saw her as more than nothing. The leader recovered, wiping blood from his jaw. His grin returned, sharper than ever. "You have courage, human, but courage cannot save you." Daniel's chest rose and fell heavily. His arms shook as he held the pipe, but his eyes never wavered. "Courage is enough," he said, his voice rough but steady. "Because it means you don't win." The hunters tensed, ready to strike. But at that moment, shouts echoed from outside, heavy boots approaching. Lights flared through the broken doorway. Other colonists' neighbors had gathered. Drawn by the noise, their voices carried confusion, alarm. The hunters froze, their red eyes flickering. They had not planned for witnesses. If they killed a human openly, it could spark unrest. Humans were weak, yes, but together they could be troublesome. The syndicate wanted fear, not rebellion. The leader snarled low, glaring at Daniel. His voice was like venom. "This is not over. We will come again, and when we do, no crowd will save you." He gestured sharply, and the hunters pulled back, retreating through the broken door. Their heavy footsteps faded into the night, leaving the house shattered and silent. Daniel stood in the wreckage, his chest heaving, blood dripping from his lip. He gripped the pipe so hard his knuckles turned white. Only when the last shadow vanished did his body finally give way. He collapsed against the wall. Sliding to the floor, the rug shifted, the floorboard lifted, and Lyra crawled out. Her body trembled as she rushed to him, her glowing eyes wide with horror. "Daniel," she whispered, her hands hovering helplessly over his injuries. "Why? Why did you do this for me? They would have spared you if you gave me up." Daniel's eyes barely stayed open. His voice was weak but firm, "Because you're not theirs, and because no one should face them alone." Her tears fell freely. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, whispering through sobs, "No one has ever stood for me before. No one." Daniel's arm moved slowly, painfully, but he placed it around her. Pulling her close, his voice cracked, but his words carried iron. "Get used to it, 'cause I'm not stopping now." Outside, the colony lights flickered, and the hunters melted back into the shadows. But inside that broken house, something stronger than fear had been born. The fight was not over. It was only beginning. The night stretched long after the hunters left. Daniel sat slumped against the wall, his body aching from every blow. His small house was a wreck. The door shattered, the furniture broken, but inside those broken walls, something far greater. Then fear remained. Lyra sat beside him, clutching his arm gently. Her glowing eyes were wide with worry. Her hands trembled as she tried to clean the blood on his face with a torn piece of cloth. Every time she touched him, she whispered, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Daniel's voice came low, heavy with pain, but steady. "Don't apologize. You didn't bring the chains." "They did." Her lips trembled. "But you risked everything." "You could have died," he forced a small smile, "though his ribs burned, but I didn't, and even if I had, it would have been worth it." Her eyes filled again, tears sliding down her cheeks. She had lived her whole life believing she was nothing, believing no one would ever fight for her. Yet here was a human broken, bleeding who had chosen her. "Over his own safety," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "Why do humans care this way?" Daniel's smile grew faint, but honest, because it's what makes us human. We care even when it hurts, even when it's dangerous. We don't always win, but we don't stop. The words struck deep in her heart. She leaned closer, pressing her forehead lightly against his shoulder. Her voice cracked. Then, "I don't want to run anymore, not alone." Daniel exhaled slowly. His arm moved. Wrapping around her thin shoulders, he pulled her closer, his own pain softened by the simple act of holding her. "Then you're not alone anymore." Hours passed. And at last, the colony outside went silent. Neighbors who had gathered drifted back to their homes, none daring to question what had truly happened. Everyone knew the syndicate's shadow stretched far. It was safer to pretend, safer to look away, but Daniel knew there was no going back. His life was tied to hers now. He had chosen, and he would not undo it by morning. The house was still broken, but he and Lyra had not moved from their place by the wall. Daniel finally pushed himself upright. Groaning with the effort, Lyra tried to stop him, her small hands gripping his arm. "Rest, please. You need to rest." He shook his head, determination in his tired eyes. "No. If they come again, this door won't hold. We need to be ready." Lyra's glowing eyes dimmed with worry. "You can't fight them all, Daniel." Turned to her, his voice steady. "Maybe not, but I won't stop. And I don't want you to stop either. You survived worse than this. You're stronger than you think." Her lips parted, her breath caught. No one had ever called her strong. For so long, she believed her scars marked weakness. But now, when she looked into his eyes, she saw something else, proof that strength could live in broken places. She nodded slowly. "Then I'll stay. I'll fight too, if they come for me. They will not take me alone." Daniel's chest tightened at her words. His heart swelled with pride and something deeper. "Good, because this house is yours now too. Not as property, not as a cage, but as shelter." Her tears came again. But this time they carried no shame. She leaned into him, whispering, "Shelter." "I've never had that before." The morning light grew stronger, shining through the broken doorway. Daniel looked at the mess around them and let out a tired laugh. "We've got work to do." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "Work?" He nodded, forcing himself to his feet with her help. "We'll fix this place. We'll make it strong. And when they come back, they'll know this isn't just a house. It's a stand." Her glowing eyes widened, and slowly, a small smile touched her lips, the first true smile he had seen on her face, fragile but full of life. A stand. Against them, Daniel gripped the pipe still lying on the floor, his voice low but fierce. "They wanted fear. But they'll find something else. Resistance." The two of them began to clean, slowly piecing together what little they could. Each broken chair, each fallen board, was a reminder of what they had survived, and each repaired corner was a promise they would not bow. As night fell again, Daniel sat by the window once more. The same place he had kept watch before, but this time he was not alone. Lyra sat beside him, wrapped in her blanket, her glowing eyes watching the darkness outside. She whispered softly, "They will come again." "I know it," Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "Then let them. We'll be ready." Her hand slipped into his, small and trembling, but firm. For the first time, she was not just begging for mercy. For the first time, she was choosing to stand. The hunters were still out there, their shadows waiting. Their threat hung heavy in the night air. But inside that broken little house, something stronger than fear had taken root: shelter, trust, and the beginning of something the Syndicate had never expected: hope.